Hey guys, I'm here with Wiedrich. We're going over his 1960 Panhead. You know, he's had a couple versions of this bike, and it's taken a while to get where it is, so we're going to talk all about that, maybe tell some stories. I'm excited. Cool.
So my dad's cousin had a Panhead chopper back in like the late 70s. He had it chopped, and I think from what I figured out, it might have went to like Smith Bros and Fetro in Minnesota area. Coffin tank, this sissy bar was on the bike. Dad was always in like the trades, working at power plants, kind of knew of the guy that had the bike. And so we went knocking on some doors, probably like an hour north of Bismarck, small little town. Little dude answered the door, like gray bearded guy, you know, told him the story, like, hey, we're here, just wondering if you ended up with Moose's pan, you know, that kind of story. And yeah, he's like, yeah, I had that. I rode that thing everywhere. I was all excited, like maybe I have a shot at it. And then he's like, yeah, I put it back to stock in like the early 2000s, and then I sold it to a guy in Beulah, which is another small town not far from there. So I'm like, oh, cool, like maybe another lead. And then he goes, yeah, but I still have all the chopper parts off of it. And I was just like, oh, no way. So he takes us out in the garage, and you know, I heard stories of this tank growing up that it had like a Reaper with a sigh on it, and it was this old coffin tank. Well, he couldn't find the tank, and that was what I wanted, the most. But he pulls out the sissy bar, and when he pulled it out, it was like, you know, one of the bayonet, or like cheetah ones or whatever, but it was hacked off. And so I got half of the sissy bar, and I was like, well, whatever, that's cool. And then a cool purple fender. It was a 50 originally, so I got the heads off of it. This big cheetah king queen seat. And then he takes me back in the corner. He's like, well, if you like this old chopper stuff, maybe you want this. And then he pulls out like the rear section of a wishbone frame. And I'm like, oh, sweet. And he's like, yeah, it's really weird you guys come this week. He was like, I was going to throw all this stuff out. Like, I'm cleaning house. And I was like, no way. So I gave him like whatever money I had at the time. I was, you know, probably early 20s, like ran over to the little small town bar next door and like got as much out of the ATM as I could. And I'm just like, couldn't give it to him fast enough. And I was like, yeah, just let me know if you find the gas tank, like I'll come get it. And a week later he calls me, he's like, I found it, it was in the corner. So I jammed up there as fast as I could.
And how far is that from?
Oh, it's probably like hour 15 from Bismarck, but yeah, jammed up there and gives it to me. I hung out with him most of the day, got a bunch of like Vietnam stories out of him and stuff, and drank some beers with him. Pretty interesting dude. And so I got the tank, but it was black. And I was like, oh, well that sucks. Like I wanted to see this Reaper and this, you know, evil paint job. So I take it back that night. It was when me and Cody had one of the first shops. I just stayed up like all night. I was like wet sanding it. And then I took like lacquer thinner to it because it was spray paint. They spray painted over the original mural. And so I'm kind of like working it real slow. And then eventually it get done. And it's like this #1 with like this trippy paint. I was like, well, that's not a Reaper at all. But it's just funny how like the stories and the memory changes over the years. But I was like, well, this is still really cool. And so the first version I did, I had a 49 that I got in Mankato, Minnesota. It was in a wishbone frame, shovelhead heads, like wide glide front end, ratchet top. It was like, you know, a nice, this is like before everything really blew up, so I got it for a pretty fair price. And right away I took everything off, and then I wanted to build it with a Springer, and I put that coffin tank on it. And the same week that I ended up with all this stuff, you know, I had the bottom section of this bayonet sissy bar. Well, Cody on Craigslist found the top section of a bayonet sissy bar. So it was like someone put on like a swing arm frame or whatever. So he gave me the top section, and then I had the bayonet on there for years too. So I just added it back on how it was supposed to be. So it's kind of crusty and bent. And
what are the odds of that?
I know, it was pretty wild.
No way.
He's like, well, I guess you need this, and he gave it to me. And yeah, so right after I wet sanded the tank, I just kind of scabbed this together. And this is like me, you know, learning. Like I MIG welded this and just spent the day kind of like blending it with a flapper disc. And so I had that on there for a while. I had the coffin tank on there when I originally ran it. Cody and I rode to Full Tilt one year, and I had that tin set on there. And we were like riding through the night, you know, just vibrating, whatever. Well, the seam of the tank like let loose and cracked. And I had it JB welded and stuff, but I was like, these tins are so neat, I just need to hang them on the wall. And then so I sent Michael Geltz, or Flying Weasel, a photo of it, and I was like, hey, can you do like my version of Moose's tins? And so I sent him photos of all that, and then he came up with this. So it's kind of like, that's where the #1 came from, and like the mountains he added, but like the cool, like, I don't know, like rainbow effect, that was kind of on, you know, the old tank. So he basically did my version of Moose's tins and just added a lot of some custom flair to it. So
wow.
Yeah. But so yeah, then I redid that, and then I don't know, I had like these tin sets were white for a minute, and then I sent them to Michael. He came up with this, and then yeah, I ran them on there, and then, you know, just over the years I sold the original like frame that it was in, or like, you know, built a bike and then saved my tin set. I always save these. I got those at a swap meet with Cody, I think probably like one of the early St. Paul swap meets, like the cool extended cocktail shakers. Like I always save like certain parts off the bike before I sell it.
Yeah.
That's a Hans like foot clutch. I ended up letting my first one go on a bike I sold probably like 2 years ago, and I always kick myself because I love that. That foot clutch is the best, and then Hans made it, so that was pretty cool. Well, I ended up finding that one on Chopper Swapper with the matching brake side. But
And who is Hans?
he's a guy from Minnesota. He did like cast, like he was cycle goods. So he did like foot clutches and like made a bunch of cool parts. Like one of the big dogs, and we were kind of getting into it. Like it's a rad dude. So yeah. And then I got that one back off Chopper Swapper. Now that one's not going anywhere. Like that one, I'll make sure to keep for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite part you've made on the bike?
Man, this one I didn't really like do too much one-off stuff on here, I guess. The only thing, I mean, I guess I really made was the risers on this one. And then just like, I just spent a little time this winter, like turned the head of the bolts so they were like spun and just tried to do little detail stuff on it. But this one, I didn't really get too crazy with custom parts on here. There's a lot of bolt-on stuff. And I
think my favorite part is your top tree on the Y-Glide.
Oh, yeah?
You went real custom on that.
I forgot about that. Yeah, little arms, so I couldn't reach, you know. Yeah, I forget, I guess. And then this thing, like, that Y-Glide I got from Kevin Tice in the cities, and it was always my part that, like, I'm not into for much. He kind of hooked me up with it. So it's like that always ends up on the bike kind of because of that. Because I'm selling parts constantly and trying to maintain my own bike, but then sometimes parts get sold to pay the bills. And,
yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, how many versions would you say? Like, if you had to count, what version would this one be?
Like, not joking, it's probably version 8. There's been, 3 different engines. Like, the frame... The original frame I had from that bike in Mankato, that was pretty cool. Like when I got it, the country bar was gone and it was all molded and pretty smooth, and that was the one I kind of learned on and like, you know, added my own versions to that and stuff. And then, yeah, this is a 50 frame I ended up with probably last summer, and I was gonna sell it, and then it's just probably one of the nicest wishbone frames I had, so I just decided to build myself a bike around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that was on the original? Because it was a 49 originally.
Yeah,
right?
when I first got it, it was a 49 in a like early wishbone frame, and then it had like GMA brake on it. Well, I wanted to do the mech brake and all that. So from the original version, or like one of the original versions, like the sissy bar was on there, the mufflers, the primary cover. Me and Cody got picking parts like middle of nowhere by the Canadian border. That originally came from like Southern California. A guy went up there in a Greyhound bus with all of his chopper parts, like running from the law, and like ended up like cooking meth in the middle of nowhere, Bismarck, North Dakota, or not Bismarck, North Dakota, north up by the border. And then we ended up with some parts off there, and I always just thought that crusty thing was cool, and it kind of matched the paint.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rest is just kind of me, like just pieces from the old original bike that I'm slowly putting back together.
But I feel like it's always kept like a similar geometry. Or like if you didn't know all that, you would think it was the same bike, all 8 versions, you know.
Every time I change it, it always kind of ends up back to the same. I like a tight little scrunch bike that I can just kind of rip on. And,
yeah. So
do
you have any plans to change it up, or are you pretty happy with a version 8?
Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that because I don't know. I have it together for one season, and then I'm like, well, I got to do this or I got to do that. So for the most part, I think it's going to stay like this. The heads are kind of goofy. I think they're like B-twin heads that don't really oil correctly, so I'm puffing smoke and stuff. So the engine's going to come out for sure this winter. I want to sort that out. And then, I don't know, I'll probably try to keep it like this. And then actually, now that I'm kind of like, finally got a house and the shop's where I want it to be. Hopefully, I don't plan on pulling this one apart to sell shit anymore. I'm kind of out of stuff I can sell on it because like a lot of stuff came from the boys and like, you know, sentimental stuff. So I hope that this one can just stay together, get pushed in the corner, then I'll start building other bikes again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Did you make the shifter yourself, or did you pick that up somewhere?
Yeah, no, I made that. It was just like I needed before I came out here in January, I was kind of like rushed to get some parts done. And just a shifter plate I had sitting in the garage, and then it's just a piece of stainless I kind of just turned on the lathe quickly. And then, well, the bullet on there is actually, so my grandpa passed away about 2 years ago. He was in the military, so they did like the salute and stuff. And then one of my cousins gave me the bullet off there, so I just kind of peened that thing on there. And so that's what the bullet is. I mean, not a gun guy, but, you know, a little grandpa memory on there.
Yeah. Nice, and keeping it a little personal.
Yeah. And I just like a tight shifter that's not bumping my leg when I'm trying to do the shuffle. And
of course. And then you went trick with the bracket for the chain guard a little bit.
Yeah. some David Blaine, wanted to blow some minds. How's that chain staying stretched out like that? I don't know. I just like the little detail stuff. When you look at someone's bike and it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool way to do that, or like a nice little personal feature. But
Yeah. How about the tail light with the little green bulb in it?
oh yeah, like a lot of hot rods that have that blue dot. And then I worked for Nate at Sweet, and he was always like, "Oh, you got to have the blue dots." Like every hot rod he would do, it had the blue dots, and it's just like a cool, like cheesy hot rod feature that everybody does. So I drilled it out and put that in there, and then I put another one in the brake side where your forward would go. It's like I never use forward, so put a little blue one in there, just a little detail, some flare stuff. Yeah, but I don't know. It's been fun. I just like a tight little nimble bike that I can jam on, and this thing, I think once I get the head sorted, it'll be pretty solid. Fouling plugs and stuff right now, but it was kind of like sporadic, whip it together for that Paradise show, come out and see you guys, and just kind of working the kinks out now, but pretty pleased with it this weekend. It did a good job out here.
Cool. And do you want to tell the story of the Vitzy Boys?
So like 2012, 2013, Cody and I really got into like bikes, and he's like, I'm going to make an Instagram page so we don't have to blow up our normal feed with chopper parts and bum everybody out. It's like, yeah, sounds good to me. And he's like, well, what do I call it? I was like, no idea. So the shop we were renting at the time, the very first shop we had, it said Vitzy on the door. I was like, he's like, oh, the door says Vitzy, so I'll just call it Vitzy. It's like, well, we might as well be the Vitzy Boys. And so started the Instagram page, and like at the time, it was all the boys that were in the shop or kind of a part of the shop. We all like just shared it. So it was like whoever's posting parts on there, it just was a community, like, you know, the boys in Bismarck just had free reign of it. Well, then it kind of got to be like a little more serious for us. Like we're selling a lot of parts out of there. And then kind of too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing, like people not shipping out parts on time, and like it just got to be too much. So we kind of just reorganized, and it was Cody and me for, I don't know, a couple of years. And then he started coming out here, and he was, you know, I probably moved in with you at that point, and then he's like selling parts out of here, and it was really confusing because it would be like sometimes me in the DMs or sometimes him. So like, hey, I thought you were in Los Angeles, or I thought you were in Bismarck. And it's like, well, this is what's going on. And then eventually he came out here, got more serious about it, set up the shop. He's like, I'm just going to start Hog Supply. He's like, just if you want it, take it over. So I bought like his version of the prints that he had made for t-shirts and stuff. And then, so I kind of just took that over in like 2017, 2018. I just started doing it like full time, just me then on the Instagram page. And
that's what you do full time?
Yeah, I've been doing it. I kind of like help at a fab shop in Bismarck. Like if he needs help, I do welding for him and stuff like that. And then, but yeah, basically just doing like merch, make some parts, sell old parts, sell a couple bikes here and there. But yeah, I've been doing it full time, I guess, pretty much since 2017 now. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I see the risers everywhere.
Yeah, that was a kind of a weird fluke, I guess. I don't know. I wanted to make a set for me, and then made a couple extra, and then yeah, it kind of took off. I just started doing everything out of stainless in Bismarck because we didn't have a chromer, and it was just easier for me. Like when I did my People's Champ bike too, like all stainless everything, just because no chromer, can polish it, make it look decent. And so that's why I went with the stainless too. It was cheaper. And then, yeah, now as time goes on, COVID happened, stainless prices went up. Cody lined me up with his chromer here, so was able to get some pretty nice chrome down here. So I've been shipping my new ones down here. But yeah, kind of just evolved and try to make a couple sets. And when my shop is fully up and running, I want to kind of just focus on more parts, like made a run of like those hex brake pedals and then the risers, and I want to do foot clutches. I got some in mind for those, and just a couple like select parts I want to kind of focus on. But yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I should finish the Vitzy story though, where the Vitzy kind of came about. So we became the Vitzy Boys. Like he's like, yeah, I'll call it Vitzy because of the door, and it's like, oh, it would be the Vitzy Boys. And then so we had a little, you know, crew in Bismarck that kind of went around with the Vitzy Boys, whatever. Did a T-shirt eventually. Well, here we are, like 10 years later. Knowing Nate from the fab shop, he knew this upholstery guy. His name was Dave, and you know, he kind of knew the story. He's like, hey, like, I think those dudes like rented my old shop. So flash forward, whatever. I have him do a seat for me. I talked to him. I'm like, hey, so I kind of think like, you know, we rented your old shop. He's like, yeah, my buddies call me Vitzy. And I was like, oh, well, I got to come clean. I was like, we had no idea. We started this, you know, the Vitzy Boys because of the door, the sticker on the door. And he's like, yeah. I was like, so what's up with that? He's like, well, buddies called me Vitzy, and I rented your guys' shop before you. And he's like, I'd work there late. He worked for UPS or something, so after hours, he would work at the shop. We'd get hungry, order a pizza, and the guy could never find him. So he put Vitzy on the door. And then just like, yeah, so that's where the Vitzy Boys came from. Just like total fluke. I don't know. Just,
I had no idea that
most people
part
don't.
of the story.
Yeah, well, I just recently found this out. So he did a T-shirt for me. I just met this guy probably like 4 weeks ago or something for the first time.
Oh, so you just found out?
Just met him, yeah. Like, this is all very new. So it was like, you know, we just thought it was just some random, like, we had no idea.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so it ended up being his nickname. And then he put the sticker on the door so the pizza guy could find him.
Did you show him the Vitzy Boy tattoos you guys all had?
I don't think he's seen the tattoos, but he's got a couple T-shirts, and he was very confused for a while because all of his buddies were like, what's up? How come I don't get a T-shirt? You know, and so I think his wife bought a couple T-shirts for me on, you know, on the online store, and I'm just like, well, I would definitely give you free T-shirts. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I just met him probably. Yeah, he did a passenger pad that I made for a bagger seat in town, and did a really nice job on that. Like, killer upholstery guy. So nice
awesome.
Connection to have too.
Yeah, now you
so
got a seat guy.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought maybe the Vitzy Boy and the Vitzy Man could collab and do some more seats or something too. I don't know. But, yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Well, thanks for telling that story.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my chopped and screwed version of it, I guess. The past 10 years have been weird.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
Cool.
Lee.
Yeah.
We'll handshake again.
For sure.
All right, cool.